Have you ever imagined how your steak becomes so delicious when you cook that in the fire? And the crusty pizza sear off from the oven that give us a mouthful of joy. All of this miracle that we see every day in the table is so-called Maillard reaction. It is also called Browning reaction, and this amazing reaction has changed the diet of humans forever. In primitive, humans used to hunt live animals and eat them raw, but as time goes when people were able to control the fire, humans started to roast their meat on the fire to have a better taste and scent on their meal. Besides this effect, fire enabled humans to digest their food more smoothly and kill potentially harmful microorganisms that prevent people from having a disease. This phenomenon was not defined until the 1912 when one of the French chemists named Louis-Camille Maillard first described a chemical reaction from it while he was working on the protein synthesis research. He found out that when building block of protein inside the food meets a hot temperature, it starts to reduce the sugar inside and reform the arrangement between protein and sugar to create the aromatic compound that eventually sting our tastes. This reaction comes best when people put their food on hot heating sources, that is between 140 to 165 degrees Celsius in short amount of time. But be careful that excessive reaction can give us a bitter taste on the food. Don't worry even though you're vegan, cause this reaction is not only limited to meat but also happens to bread, tea, roasted coffee, and vegetables. Pretty much every food that contains amino acid inside. Maillard reaction can create thousands of different flavored compounds depending on the types of sugar and the amino acid that foods hold, as well as the temperature and cooking time. Diaphin, for example, are sulfur-containing compounds that have a distinctly meaty quality, whereas oxidol are oxygen-containing compounds that have a nutty or sweet taste. Some Maillard reaction products don't do much on their own but enhance others' flavor. Alpharidin, for example, makes meat taste meatier, sweet taste sweeter, and salt taste saltier. Maillard reaction also occurs relatively slow paced in low hot temperature. For instance, when you peel off the fruit and leave it outdoor for some hours, you can observe that the peeled side of fruit becomes brown in color. This phenomenon is called enzymatic browning, which is a sort of a Maillard reaction. Moisture inside the juice dries out in this process, leaving sugars to synthesize with amino acid more tightly, making the dry fruit sweeter than the original one. This process occurs faster when the ambient condition is hot and dry. Although many of the scientific research claims to prove the food browning reaction in our lives, the Maillard reaction still leaves us many questions that are yet unsolved. But it is undeniably one of the greatest opportunities that we found from the fire and huge step forward on our human diet. Thank you all for listening.